we wanted to really talk about a lot has happened as far as Clemson recruiting in the past week. Not so much like commits or anything like that, but sort of the future of the quarterback position is starting to take shape. Um, Clemson made two quarterback offers this past week at Dabo Sweeney's camp. They threw for Garrett Riley and Dabo, and yeah, well, actually, a group of quarterbacks threw for Garrett Riley and Dabo, and two wound up with offers. Uh, those two going by the name of Tate Reynolds and Brady Hart. Um,
Yep.
this is really interesting for a lot of reasons. Just these two particular names and the timing at which both of them were offered, because they were offered basically simultaneously. I believe Tate Reynolds was offered first, and then
Yep.
Brady Hart. But Brady Hart was the first to announce, so it was kind of a
Right.
interesting little sort of dynamic there. Um, but I want to start with Tate Reynolds. He was the first quarterback offered uh, from the state of Arizona, Queen Creek. Um, has not been playing the quarterback position very long. He threw for, I believe, 1,800 yards, 11 touchdowns, 11 picks. That doesn't sound the number when you look at the numbers. That it doesn't sound all that great.
Yeah.
And so I can understand there's some concern there. But he has an extremely live arm, really great athlete. He kind of has a lot of the tools that Garrett Riley is looking for in a quarterback. So, I think this is an offer that is one that could potentially be one of those where we look back and we're like, okay, we didn't think much of it then, but it turns out he's actually pretty good. He plays baseball as well. He's a top
Yep.
100 baseball prospect, currently
Yeah.
committed to Arizona State. But it's very clear that his recruitment's open, so that's not really going to affect anything. He does want to play baseball in college,
Right.
so a lot of this, a lot of the timeline for how this is going to play out is, whether when he can actually talk to Clemson baseball coaches, Eric Bakich and all of them, because I don't think they can start communicating with recruits until August.
August. Yep.
Yep. And so this one is kind of this offer is kind of a telling about kind of where Clemson sees their quarterback position and what Garrett Riley himself is looking for as far as the future of the offense. It's clear they're kind of they really like the what Clemson has done in previous cycles has been kind of they've targeted a lot of the higher profile guys, and it seems like now this is more of an evaluation. We're going to find our guy early on. Does he have the traits? Does he fit the mold of what we're looking for this offense? And we're going to
Right.
offer and try to get him on board as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So Tate is he's gotten interest from all over. So it's not like Clemson is like just a lone wolf here. But I do like where Clemson stands right now a lot as far as their chances of getting him. So of course he's going to go through his process, but this is an offer that I think will could eventually lead into a commitment, and obviously that depends on kind of how this timeline plays out with the other quarterback that they offered by the name of Brady Hart from the state of Florida, Coco. Oh man, what is it? Is it Coco? I had it up. I always forget the name. But regardless, from the state of Florida, when you look at the numbers, they jump out to you a lot more. I believe he threw for nearly 4,000 yards, 38 touchdowns. Really accurate. When you put on his tape, I mean, it really does. He just plays with a lot of poise. He doesn't have the physical attributes that Tate Reynolds does, but the ball placement, the poise. He has a really nice release. It's a little bit. I mean, I think he gets the ball out pretty quickly. I saw someone. I think when you look at the 24/7 Sports, sort of scouting report for him, it says that he has an elongated release and that it's kind of slow. But then when you watch, I don't really see it. and I feel like he'd be able to get the ball out pretty quickly at the next level. So I really think that Brady Hart is another great potential option, and I think Clemson is in really good standing with him as well. Um, so I think it really just depends on how both of these guys sort of play out their they both want to look at their options, evaluate their options, and see where what's actually out there. But I really like where Clemson stands, and I'm sure you've probably seen the crystal ball predictions that in for Brady Hart.
Yeah.
Um, and but he wants to make sure that he covers all his bases and make sure he makes the right decision. So um, I'm really really intrigued with how this timeline is going to play out, because it very well there's a lot of fluidity here that could be the difference in whether Tate Reynolds ends up being the quarterback for this
Right.
26 class, or Brady Hart,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not taking two. I know
Nope.
that's kind of something that I wouldn't be opposed to, but clearly the staff is not that's not the idea here. They like both of them, and they said, hey, listen, we've got one spot available. So first come first serve. Whoever's
Yep.
ready to go, that's who we're rocking with. Um, and so it could be the difference. Of Brady Hart maybe extending his recruitment out a little bit more, and Tate Reynolds getting to meet with Eric Bakich, and they hit it off, and Tate Reynolds ends up committing to Clemson, or maybe Tate Reynolds drags his recruitment out, and Brady Hart he goes on his visits that he's going on throughout the summer, and he decides, all right, I think I know where my heart is, and he decides to commit. So what were your kind of thoughts when have you gotten to watch either of their tape, and what are your kind of thoughts of them as prospects? Do you have a preference? I think I have a preference, a slight preference
Yeah.
on who I would rather Clemson take. Do you have any sort of thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. So it's going to be interesting how it plays out with both of these guys, right? One, it's a first come first serve basis, just like you outlined, Jordan. This is not a thing where Clemson's going to take two quarterbacks. They're looking for one quarterback. So the first of these two that commits, that other offer doesn't mean anything anymore, right? So that's first and foremost. The other thing that I find interesting with these two guys is obviously with Tate Reynolds, baseball is going to be a factor, right? They can't even talk to the baseball staff, Eric Bakich, and the rest of the baseball staff until August. The Clemson baseball staff is going to play a part in this because, as you mentioned, Tate Reynolds wants to play baseball in college along with playing football. Now, that gives me kind of pause for concern um, when it comes to specifically a quarterback position, right? Because so much goes into being a quarterback, especially at the level in which Clemson plays and competes in college football, that I don't know if you can split the time between baseball and football and really give it all you got. I don't know, as a starting quarterback for a major college football program, I don't know if you can really do both. And that's just a personal opinion of mine. I do like Tate Reynolds. I do like the fact that he's a big guy. He's athletic. He's got a big arm. A little bit still raw, but he's got several more years to develop. Right. He's got 2 more years in high school to develop, so I don't really think that's a big deal. But it does give me a little bit of pause for concern that he wants to play baseball in college,
Yeah,
simply because of the position that he plays. Quarterback is just one of those positions that I feel like you got to kind of be all in on, man. There's so much on your shoulders. There's so much that you're digesting and doing, and things that you need to do not only during the season but in the off season when he would be playing baseball, right? There are things that he should be doing to improve as a college quarterback, right, for Clemson. So that gives me a little bit of pause for concern. He does appear, his skill set appears to be a little more friendly to the Garrett Riley system that he would be playing in, more so than Brady Hart. But Brady Hart's a guy that, I mean, you obviously listed off his numbers: 38 touchdowns, over 4,000 yards. I mean, the guy can absolutely ball. Um, so I really wouldn't mind either one of these guys. I think the biggest thing for me is kind of that baseball piece and it being a quarterback. When it was a little bit different with the Will Taylor situation, right? He was a receiver, right? So I think there's a little bit more play within that position to dedicate so you can go play baseball for a little bit. I just don't know if that works at the quarterback position at this level. I could be proven wrong. Who knows? Tate Reynolds may commit to Clemson and become the next great quarterback in a long lineage of really good quarterbacks at Clemson. I just don't know if it works as far as the baseball piece. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that kind of sums up my concerns as well. Like I think Tate Reynolds is a guy that I think the upside is absolutely there because he's just natural God given talent as far as an athlete. He's very physically like he looks like a quarterback. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
he has a lot of developing to do. Like I said, last season was his first his first season playing quarterback,
Right.
and what 11 touchdowns, 11 picks. That doesn't that obviously doesn't scream out. It's not really exciting as far as the numbers are concerned. Now, one thing I did find out was that 5 of the picks he threw that season were in one game, and I believe that was his first game. Um, so if
Tough way to
you
start your career.
yeah, it's a tough way to start your career, but I guess he finished the season a lot better. So I do want to see what he looks like as a junior and what his
Yeah.
progression from year one starting to year two is. Because if he does make a significant leap, obviously there's a lot more intriguing there. But I mean, you hit on it, the baseball aspect. It just it's not something that obviously Clemson has not been opposed to their players playing baseball. You think of
Right.
Will Taylor and Kyle Parker, DJ Reader, even
DJ Reader. Yep.
at a time.
Yep.
And so, like, Clemson has a history of being receptive to that. But when you think about, especially the recent example of Will Taylor, he came in as a quarterback, switched to wide receiver, and then obviously just, at a certain point, he was like, okay, I got to focus on one thing or the other. And he
Right.
stuck with baseball, obviously, because his professional prospects were definitely in baseball and not football.
Yeah, I mean, good choice for him, right? He's
Yeah.
about to be drafted in the Major League Baseball draft, so
Yeah.
he's
So
doing just fine. He made the right choice.
yeah, I mean, he was a very highly sought after baseball recruit, and
Right.
just decided to stay in school, and play football as well. But it's just, especially with what Clemson needs their quarterback to be in this day and age.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot different than when Kyle Parker was the
Right.
starting quarterback. There
Yeah.
was it takes a lot to be to play two sports, any two sports. I mean, we've had DeAndre Hopkins. He played
Yeah.
football and basketball as a freshman.
Yep.
Obviously, that didn't last long. He played, I believe, he played like the last 6 or 7 games of his freshman year for the basketball team, but he had to focus on football, and obviously that worked out for him very well. He's a
Yeah.
multi-time Pro Bowler, future Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Future Hall of
Um,
Famer. Yeah. Absolutely.
so like, I just if you're recruiting Tate Reynolds to eventually be a starting quarterback for you, that you need to play games for you. I don't know whether the baseball aspect will be something he'll be able to consistently to stick with. Maybe he comes in as if he commits and signs and he comes in as a freshman and plays, football and baseball in a year where he doesn't have to start. Maybe that does happen. But I
Yeah.
think long term, will he be able to commit to both? We don't
Yeah.
have
And then
very many. We don't have really any examples of that.
right, we don't.
Recent
And the
examples.
the other thing that kind of concerns me with it is, you mentioned, and it's very true, right? His raw talent, like his just athletic gifted ability that he was gifted from God, right? Like, but he's going to need development. You mentioned he's only been playing quarterback for a year. This dude is about as raw of a prospect as you can get at the quarterback
Mhm.
position. And now you're talking about coming in, probably still needing development if he's the one that ends up committing and taking the offer, probably still needing some development, right? Probably not step on campus day one starter type dude, right? Unless something crazy happens within the next 2 years, right? And that very well could happen. That's not out of the realm of possibility, but he's probably going to still need some more development when he gets on campus. And now you're talking about splitting time with baseball, right?
Yep.
I just don't feel great about that. I really don't. I don't feel great about it. Um, I mean, if it was my decision, I'd lean more, obviously Brady Hart, because of that situation. But obviously the ceiling is probably higher with Tate Reynolds.
Yeah, I'm with you, and to hit on Brady Hart, like I do really like you watch his tape. It's really impressive. I think his
Yeah,
understanding of it, I mean he makes his reads. You go through the highlight. There's one in particular where he hits this cover two hole shot, like, and the
yeah,
safety is like literally like if he throws the ball like a split second later, it's an interception. But he fits
right.
it right between the corner and the safety, and it was just like he saw it all the way through. And he's a very instinctive passer, very natural understanding of the quarterback position. He has really good
Right.
feel. When they talked about him, when he was interviewed, I believe by Tiger Illustrated, I want to credit them properly. So I believe it was Tiger Illustrated. When they asked about who he compared himself to, he
Mhm.
compared himself to Trevor Lawrence. And when you watch him, not from a physical, you know, tools and arm talent
Yeah.
standpoint, when you
Yeah.
watch his the way he moves and in the pocket and his feel for the pocket and how he delivers the ball, I see some Trevor Lawrence, and just kind of it's a very smooth, compact, just just not even really worried about what's going on around him. He's very much dialed into what's going on down the field, and it's just everything is one fluid motion. That's kind of what it looks like. So you know, I think Brady Hart would be a fantastic addition if he ends up being the guy,
Oh yeah.
um,
Yeah.
as well. And so I think Clemson has two really good options. It's just one, there's obviously some concerns, probably more concerns from one than the other, from
Yeah.
a experience and experience standpoint, and obviously the baseball aspect. So I'm really interested to see kind of how all this plays out, and we'll definitely have updates on, as these guys take visits and get more, um, deeper into their sort of process. We'll kind of have a better idea of what their timeline is looking like. Um,
Yeah.
but I wanted to
Absolutely.
talk about it because you can, it's really easy to kind of ignore 2026 and because we're still thinking about what's going on in the 2025 class, but the coaches can't afford to be that way, and they're already
Exactly.
laying the groundwork. We talked about what Matt Luke has been doing as far as laying the groundwork for the future classes,
Yeah.
um, and some of the offers that went out, and so it's a recruiting it is a
Never
six
stops, man.
it's never stops, and for any given class, like, you're laying the groundwork for that class, you know two
While still knee
three
deep in recruiting for the class you're about to sign.
right,
Like,
and like and for any is this like you start for some kids, you lay the groundwork when they're like camp, like when they're like little, like middle school, and had come into camps and stuff,
yeah.
like you build
Yeah.
those relationships. It's a really it, it's a very, very arduous process for any class, and you only think about it as from a fan perspective. You only think about it in the immediate. It's like, okay, this class is coming in a year out from now. But the
Right.
coaches have been, they've been, communicating with these kids for in a lot of cases for years,
Right.
before they're even ready to, become college athletes. So um, that's kind of the reality of what college football recruiting is. And so we did want to talk about it because it's very important, especially since, um, you know, beyond Blake Hebert, and obviously you didn't take a quarterback in the 2024 cycle. There's a lot of questions about what the future of the quarterback position looks like for Clemson. So we did want to hit on that. You have any other final thoughts on that before we move on?
No, I mean, obviously there's a long way to go in both of these recruitments. Nothing, no decisions are going to be made anytime soon. I know the crystal ball came out for Brady Hart. I really wouldn't pay any attention to that right now. These guys got plenty of recruiting in front of them, and there's plenty that will happen between now and the time that they probably announce their verbal commitment, whichever one decides to do it first. But just I trust the Clemson coaching staff, right? They've evaluated these guys. They thought that these two guys were worthy of that 2026 offer at the quarterback position. And we'll kind of just keep an eye on these guys and see, how their junior season goes as, high school players, and, see what kind of steps that Reynolds takes, and the same with Brady Hart. And I look forward to following these guys and watching their tape and kind of see how they develop, because again, like, yeah, we're talking about them committing to Clemson, but they still got 2 years of high school football, so to
Yeah.
develop as players and quarterbacks. So that'll be exciting to watch that, and then figure out which one's going to lock it in and become that 2026 guy for the Tigers.
Yeah. And I think the great thing is it's a good problem to have, to be like, okay, which one of them is going to
Right.
commit?
Yeah.
Because I do think Clemson ends up with one of them.
Yeah. No
I
doubt.
think they're in really great shape for in both of them, and so it's really on Clemson on how they want to navigate this, and so we'll see how that ultimately plays out.